Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, there was no regulation, there was nothing that did not give me the full authority to decide how I was going to communicate. Now, I didn't have to turn over anything. I chose to turn over 55,000 pages because I wanted to go above and beyond what was expected of me, because I knew the vast majority of everything that was official already was in the State Department system.
All right, there she is, ladies and gentlemen. James Taranto, columnist for the Wall Street Journal, editor of OpinionJournal.com, joins us. His latest piece up today is People Should and Do Trust Me, which is a line from Hillary's interview, even though the polls show that people do not trust her. I think only 40% in the latest CNN poll trust her. Hello, James.
Hi, how are you?
Your overall take of that interview with Breonna Keeler yesterday.
Well, it was not as hard-hitting an interview as one might have liked. It was not as much of a puffball as some people had feared after the revelation that the reporter had, along with a bunch of other CNN people, attended the wedding of Mrs. Clinton's director of grassroots development. She asked some tough questions. I wish she had pushed on more of the specifics, though. In the clip you played, for example, we have Mrs. Clinton saying she didn't. She turned over everything. She didn't have to. Well, apart from the question of whether she was really complying with the Obama administration's regulations, we have learned in recent weeks that Mrs. Clinton withheld at least 9 emails between herself and Sidney Blumenthal, her informal advisor, longtime advisor, whom the White House had prohibited her from hiring because he had been involved in attacks on Obama during the 2008 campaign. But more telling still, of the emails that turned up in Blumenthal's records, 6 of them had been turned over, the printouts from Mrs. Clinton, only in part, which tells us that presumably that somebody in Mrs. Clinton's employ was going through and redacting the actual particular emails, taking out particular portions of them, which to my mind strongly suggests evidence tampering.
Yeah, and she also poo-pooed any kind of subpoena when the word subpoena was issued or mentioned. And in fact, of course, the emails were subpoenaed back in March by the Select Select Committee on Benghazi.
Yeah, she specifically denied ever having received a subpoena, which is clearly not true. Representative Gowdy has put out a copy of that subpoena, which was issued in March, and she also said that I'm trying to remember what there's so much of it that it's hard to keep straight. Oh yes, she repeated her claim that she had used only one device.
Right.
But the Associated Press reported in March that some emails that turned up from a Freedom of Information Act request showed that she was using an iPad as well as her BlackBerry to exchange emails. So I don't know how serious of a lie that one is, except for the fact that the only using one device was her initial justification back in March for why she set up her own server.
Right, and she's also not tech savvy. She also pulled out the old vast right-wing conspiracy line without saying those words. That was her whole defense of everything.
Yeah, that was her answer to the question about, why do so many voters say they don't find you honest and trustworthy? And, she mentioned in that connection that she won election to Senate twice in New York despite this similar sort of onslaught. Onslaught was the word she used. So it looks to me like what she's doing is she's approaching this in the same way she approached the impeachment of her husband in 1998. And of course, after that, she did get elected to the Senate. So you can say that this approach was successful at the time. I'm not so sure it's as successful now because there are 2 big differences. One is she was running for Senate in a very Democratic state, a state that Al Gore carried with 60% of the vote, even as he was losing the presidency. Mrs. Clinton, by the way, ran about 5 points behind Al Gore. But the other is that Mr. Clinton's misbehavior that was at issue in the impeachment did not implicate Mrs. Clinton, and the sort of underlying conduct, the sexual conduct with Miss Lewinsky, was at Mrs. Clinton's expense. I'm not sure she gets the same kind of public sympathy at this point.
I like when you say Ms. Lewinsky. It takes me back. Just got to point that finger. Also, we have less than a minute left. Of course, the Wall Street Journal, United Airlines, and the New York Stock Exchange had computer glitches today. I know you're back up. Your homepage was hit. What do you believe? There's any coordinated effort here that this was some kind of a hack attack?
This is well beyond my pay grade, Steve. You should ask our people who handle technical questions. All I know is that our homepage was down at the time. We went to backup systems. My understanding is that everything is running now, and apparently pages for articles were not affected.
Okay,
so,
good.
If you had a link to my column, you could get through to it.
All right, sounds good. James, thank you, sir. Always great to talk to you. Give Me 5 is next, folks. Don't go away.